I've been kind of down lately, and the whole quarantine thing, and not even sure like what's going on in the world, and we can't travel or anything. I wanted to well, I was feeling nostalgic, and what I did is I plugged in my hard drive from a long time ago, and I just kind of browsed around to kind of see what I find, and just kind of take a small walk down memory lane, even if it wasn't that long ago. I wanted to talk about how important it is to travel. Um, as a kid, I was really lucky. I got to go travel to California pretty frequently, actually. When I was younger, I didn't really appreciate traveling too much. I mainly just wanted to stay home and play games and hang out with friends. And I just didn't see the whole point in traveling. Like, why would I go somewhere to just do the same things I do here? And as I got older, probably after high school, I started to feel kind of stuck. But I kind of ignored it, and I just kind of, went about my day like anybody else and just tried to have a normal life. So just to give you some backstory, back in 2017, I used to work at my dad's shop, and I've been there for a while, for about maybe like 6 to 7 years, something like that. Um, and the goal was always to take over the shop and become its new owner, and all that stuff. And just one day I realized I just wasn't happy. Go figure, right? So um, it was good timing because at the time somebody had bought over the shop, and I kind of had a choice to either stay or to go off and try something new. So I decided to try something new. And during that time, I just started to get into photography and videography, and I was really lucky with a lot of the experiences that I got in such a short amount of time, thanks to some friends. But even still, I felt pretty stuck here, and I just didn't know what it was. And then one day, I was on a dating app, and I matched up with this girl. We'll call her Yoko. How's that? We'll call her Yoko. And she was from Australia. And things were cool. We hung out, and I got to show her on the island and everything, and it was all fine and dandy. And on her last day of her vacation, she said, "Hey, if you ever want to come to Australia, let me know. You can always stay with me." So a couple months passed by. We kept in touch and everything, and I decided, hey, I got enough money. I don't have anything planned. I don't mind traveling, I guess. I mean, I don't know what else there is to do down here. So I bought a ticket to Melbourne and went to Australia to meet up with Yoko and to kind of explore Australia. Now, I've gone traveling before, but I've never flown by myself. So that was a that was a very interesting thing to experience at the tender age of 26 or 25. And yeah, I've never had to travel by myself before. So there's a lot of things I need to figure out, and buses I need to figure out, all these little details that you kind of take for granted when you're a kid, because your parents kind of do that for you. So I went to Melbourne, Australia, is where she was staying at. She's actually from Sydney, but she moved to Melbourne for work, and she was there for about maybe a month or two before I got there. And she was pretty new to Melbourne too. She was busy moving stuff and getting used to her job and everything. So I I couldn't really rely on her to take me to too many places, only because like she barely even knew Melbourne. So, but that wasn't a big deal. I mean, I figured I was in town. I mean, I have a lot of time. I think I was there for like a little over a month on my first time to Melbourne was a little bit over a month, and the second time was like maybe another month, maybe 2 months. So I would say I was total in Australia maybe like 3 months total out of the year. But so when I went to Melbourne, it was so interesting because I just didn't think it'd be the way it was. And everyone's idea of Australia is, oh, there's kangaroos, there's koalas, and there's like about a million other things that could kill me. But really, that's not really the case. Melbourne's actually, well, if you go to parts of Australia, then yes, I'm sure there's tons of wildlife that can kill you. But if you stay in like the city areas like Sydney or Melbourne or whatever, like nothing's gonna hurt you. It's basically like any other city. But the interesting part about Melbourne is that it's kind of not like every other city. It's a weird mixture between LA, Tokyo, and Hawaii. Now, hear me out on this one, okay? I know it doesn't really make any sense. So, people are pretty relaxed in Australia. They're sarcastic as shit. So, if you don't like sarcasm, you're gonna have a good time. You're not gonna have a good time in Australia if you don't like sarcasm. So, you gotta go there with an open mind. And it's funny, they don't care for Americans there. And honestly, I think a lot of places don't care for Americans. But if you're from Hawaii, make sure you tell them, yes, I'm American, but I'm from Hawaii. It will save you. You have no idea how different the vibe changes when you tell someone you're from Hawaii and not like Texas or California or basically anywhere but Hawaii. So while I was there, I learned a lot of different, I wouldn't say culture, because like Australia doesn't really have a culture per se. It's kind of like America, honestly. It's just a big melting pot of different races. And the most popular race, believe it or not, is Asian, which I never thought that would happen. I never thought Australia was full of Asians. I thought it was like full of like white dudes or like darker people or what have you. But no, the majority is Asian. They're like Koreans, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, like all kinds of Asians. And yeah, it really didn't feel like I was in Australia. It felt like I was more like in Tokyo or even home. I mean, because here in Hawaii we have nothing but Asians for the most part. I mean, you have your like your white people too, but mainly Asian. And Australia is no different. Plenty of Asians. So during this time, during this time, Yoko was she was still working while I was there, so she couldn't spend the days with me. So during the daytime, I had to just go out and explore, and it was cool. I mean, I went all over the CBD area, which is the Central Business District, and it was just a really good time. I mean, I had no plans. I just kind of got lost, and so Australia is actually pretty safe. I mean, I'm sure there's crime. There's crime wherever you go. I mean, any place you really go, but it was just a really different experience. I mean, coming from a small island in the middle of bumfuck nowhere ocean, Australia is a very different area. It's just a really different place. The people act different. The style is different. I mean, the architecture is different. The food is kind of the same. Actually, funny thing about the food, Australians may tease Americans, but Australians actually like American things like cheeseburgers, pizzas, Harley Davidsons, and Ford Mustangs. Yeah. You know what's interesting about Australians? They make fun of Americans a lot, but they are Americans essentially. They're basically Americans with accents, with bad English accents. They're Australians are basically Americans with bad English accents. And I'm sorry to my Australian friends if that upsets you, but that's basically how I see you guys. It's Americans with bad accents. What was good about this trip is that I got to go to these different places like the 12 Apostles, and went to like a bunch of different museums, and I went to like the Melbourne Zoo. Just your typical like touristy things, and I think the good part about it was that I was experiencing these things with someone who hasn't even experienced those things herself, So although she was from Australia, she never really got to experience Melbourne because she's from Sydney. So, we both got to experience a lot of cool things together, and it didn't make me feel like so much of a visitor. It made me feel more like dare I say an adventurer. Oh god. But yeah, it was cool. And when I came back home, something in me kind of changed when I was up there. And for the longest time, I've lived here my entire life. I've lived in Hawaii my entire life. And it's just this entire time I always felt kind of out of place, I guess. I was never the one to go like to the beach a lot, or to go hiking a lot, or to do outdoorsy things. The things that you do when you live in Hawaii or when you visit Hawaii. You know, I wasn't really utilizing Hawaii for what it is and what it has to offer. And I just never really felt like I matched here. And when I went to Australia for once, I felt like, okay, well, this is a lot different. It's very different. It's just what, but but for some place that's so different, why do I feel like I kind of belong here? You know? So I don't know what the whole purpose of this video is. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's good to go out and to travel especially when you feel like you don't really match where you belong, even if that's all you know is the place where you're from. Who knows, when you go out, maybe you'll discover that you like where you live, or maybe you'll discover that you like big cities, or maybe you'll figure out that you just don't like home. And that's what I kind of learned. I mean, home will always be home to me, but it's just different. Ever since I started going on my travels, everything's a bit different. Home is kind of like where I'm from, and all these places I've traveled after is places that has shown me a lot of potential of what I'd like to be, or where I would like to be for myself. I think it's good to go out and find yourself. I know it sounds so cringy because that's what a lot of people do. They go traveling and they find themselves and they find nirvana and find their center and all that crap. But I kind of stand behind that. I get where they're coming from. When you're lost, sometimes you just gotta wander off and get more lost. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find something worth keeping on to. Yeah. I love that I got the opportunity to travel, and I hope to travel some more, and I hope we all get to travel some more after this quarantine is over. I think we all need a break from our normal day lives, because I don't know about you, but I'm about to kill somebody. I'm just kidding, but yeah. Hopefully when this is all done, we can all go traveling together and get to experience each other more and experience more with each other. I think that's a really important thing to experience in life, is to just go out there and experience something, anything. Even if you travel and you realize you don't like it, that's something that at least for sure about yourself. You won't ever have to wonder about that ever again, So until then, until this whole quarantine thing is over, I hope you guys are staying safe, and I hope I see you guys around.